Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donahue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donahue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. We are the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present. Today, we're going to a very British, old-timey, creepy history episode. I hope you enjoy it. I just had so much fun looking everything up. But just to give you a little bit of background, if you want to follow us on social media, we have a basic Facebook page, but we don't check it very often because that's a place where people complain about our salty language. We do use salty language in this program, so warning ahead of time.
Fuck yeah, it's what makes us so cool.
And girly. Anyway, we are more interactive in our private Facebook group, so ask to join the group. You go to What a Creep Podcast group, and you have to answer a few questions, and then you can join right in. We're also on Twitter for now. If it still exists, at CreepPod, because somebody had What a Creep on Twitter for over 10 years and never used it.
Creep.
We're on Instagram, What a Creep Podcast, and we have an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. Sonia, do you want to talk to them about the website?
Yes, you can go to whatacreeppodcast.com, and it's everything you ever wanted to know about our show, but we're afraid to ask. You shouldn't be afraid to ask, but if you are, you can go to the website. There are links to all of our past episodes, and in each of those episodes are links to our show notes. And our show notes, we source everything. We're not making this up. We're just, repeating the things that the mainstream media say to us, apparently, according to our reviews. No, we source everything. So please, you could go there and check it all out. And there's also a link to our merch shop. So if you want t-shirts and tote bags and journals and all kinds of face masks, all that stuff is still in our merch shop. Perfect holiday gift, FYI. There's also a link to our Patreon page. You want to tell them about that?
Yes. So we have the first 6 seasons now behind the wall on our Patreon page. We put out 2 bonus episodes a month with that. And we're also sending out a holiday card for the Patreon members. So dangling that carrot for you. It helps us pay for the costs of the show, just the hosting costs for the website, for also all the news outlets that we subscribe to in order to give you this rockin' version of a podcast. So thank you all for doing that. We completely appreciate it, but we understand if money is tight and you can't do that. If you could leave us a review in iTunes, that'd be amazing. It really does help us with the people who just kind of want to be asshats. Look, we're big girls.
We can handle
it. But, if that's you want to help us out, Spotify, leave some stars, or in Good Pods, whatever. Or send us an email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. Send us your suggestions there. And also, you can ask for a sticker. We'll send you stickers in the mail. Put that on your laptop.
Yeah, wherever you want. Put it on your journals. Stick it on your wall. Put it on your car.
Fridge. Put it anywhere you want. Do whatever you want. It's your life.
Stick it right on the forehead as some creep in your life. Whatever you want, man.
Whatever you do you, boo. So please, that's a place also you can help us out, or just tell a friend about the show. Also, I want to thank Long Story Long podcast. It's a podcast hosted by Lisa Curry. She just had me on her show, and it was just posted.
Fun.
I talked about my book and my life and my cats and all those fun things. So
fun.
It was really fun. So have I missed anything, Sonia?
I don't think so.
I think we were ready to jump into this podcast. Let's just do a little bit of background. I want to get into this first. First, I found out I was doing some research on our analytics, which not a word you'll hear coming out of my mouth very frequently, but I just looked it up to find out how many people, subscribe to the show, where are they from? And Sonia, our number 1 city is London.
Well, that was very unexpected to me.
It's London, then New York, and then, around the world. But we knew we had a lot of listeners in the UK, but I didn't realize how popular we were in London. So
we need to go visit.
We do. We need to we'll go to a pub and we'll meet y'all. You'll probably outdrink us. Just saying something.
Oh, I don't know about that.
So that had me thinking about an episode I wanted to do for a while. I want to talk about, first of all, is let me tell you, shoplifting is a bad thing. It causes the prices to go up for things. It's not a great thing. I worked in retail. I've worked at a restaurant once where I was robbed at gunpoint. I've worked in retail where I was robbed. I mean, it's not fun for the employees.
No.
When people complain and they think about gangs of thieves, most shoplifting is done actually by the employees themselves. That's just
correct.
That's just matter of fact. But every once in a while, it comes up as a news story of like a smash and grab or something like that. It's been something that's been happening since we've had stores. It's just one of those ways people try to make some money. So I want to just bring light to that. So we're going to be talking about Diamond Annie and the 40 Thieves.
I've never heard this story, so.
I got into this because I started watching Peaky Blinders, which is a show about British and Irish, thieves in the 1920s. And it's got sexy people and it's really cool. And that's all I ever really know.
It's been recommended to me many times.
It's been on the air forever. It had like 8 seasons or something like that. So I've just been starting to go through it. And it's on Netflix here in the States. It's about a group of thieves and gangsters in 1920s London. Many people do not know that there were gangs of women who were considered the best shoplifters and thieves of the wealthy class from the 19th century up to the 1950s, mid-19th century up to the 1950s. The most notorious of these were the 40 Thieves, FortyElephants / FortyElephants. They're called both things, and we'll talk about why.
Okay.
That were run by a tough group of women who were masterminds. They were criminal masterminds. Diamond Annie was labeled as such for her ferocious punch with her fingers that were crammed with diamond rings. Damn. She, at 5'9", she was taller than most men, and at the time, the average height of a man was 5'6".
Interesting.
And she ran a group of shoplifters, seducers, and blackmailers and thieves. The media was baffled by them. The police were completely baffled by their brazenness and their innovation, how they used automobiles. They used women's love of fashion, and they used society's, the way they looked at women as their way of getting away with what they wanted to get away with. This story is fucking wild. So let me go through my sources for this episode real quick. The History Girls, Ranker, the FortyElephants Wikipedia page, The Sun, UK, St. Mary's University, DannyDutch.com, The Guardian. The book that I really recommend, Alice Diamond and the 40 by Brian McDonald. I'm just doing a big overview here, guys. There's so much to explore, but I really recommend this book if you're interested in going further. Lessons from History on Medium, Bitch Media, Wondrium Media, The Human Exception, The Culture Trip, Grunge, and The Daily Mail. Did a lot of research here.
Yeah, you did.
Trigger warnings, thieving, and my attempt at a British accent.
Love it. Wait till you hear mine.
When I was in middle school, we did a production of Oliver, and there was one girl who was playing like the barmaid, and she was always practicing her English accent. She'd walk around like, "Hello, love," and she'd practice doing it. We all were like, what a dork. Like, who is this person? She goes on stage that night, and she fucking nails it. Like, she was fucking brilliant. So that was my first realizing, like, actors are crafting, that it is really a lot of work to put on a performance. Anyway, hello, love. Let's talk about Tom and Annie. That sounds like Crocodile Dundee, does it not?
That's a knife.
That's a knife.
I can't do any accents at all, so I'm impressed either way.
Mine are a mishmash of a lot of different things. So Diamond Annie was the queen of thieves, but before her, there was Mary Carr. Mary Carr was 13 when she started her thieving. This is London in the middle of the 19th century. Here's the deal. It's a caste system. You're either born into money or you're not born into money. So if you are poor, a lot of chances are that you're just going to remain poor throughout your life. There's not a lot of growth. There's not a lot of movement between the classes. You kind of grow up in a neighborhood and you stay in a neighborhood. That's sort of the way things are. One way to make a living was to be a thief, right? It's always there. There's always somebody that's looking to make some cash. So we know about the Peaky Blinders thing, which is men taking over organizations, mobs, all that kind of stuff. Middle of the 1850s and so, if you were a woman, what were you going to do with your life? You got to marry somebody and hope they have a good living.
Right.
Let's say you don't marry well, and let's say you're married to somebody who beats you or cheats on you or whatever. What are your options? Where can you go? This is a time when they had things called debtor's prison. You could be imprisoned for being poor. There wasn't a lot of education going on. I mean, it's like Dickensian times. He wrote about what he knew and what he saw. And Charles Dickens was someone who had a lot of money and then no money, then a lot of money. So he kind of saw it all. So that's sort of the world like I kind of see. So there's an area by the Thames in South London, and it was Elephant and Castle. And there was a pub called the Elephant and Castle, and so there was gangs that were called Elephant and Castle mobs, and there were several of them. And they were known as hoisters. Hoisters, not oysters, hoisters.
Oysters.
Hoisters are thieves. So they steal things. If you can't sneak a pocket or two, and if you can't pick a pocket or two. I'm going to sing all of her this whole time. That was Mary Carr. She was the original, and she ran it with like an iron fist. She was in charge, and she would get a lot of women on her side. And a lot of things were like women, like I said, there wasn't even like you could get a job as a school teacher. It was very rough for a woman to make a living at the time. And if you didn't want to go into prostitution, because that's also very dangerous. You know, you're making yourself vulnerable. Thieving is a way, for whatever you want to say about it. Yes, it's against the law and all that crap. So Mary Carr was one of the ones that first started a gang of women. And what they would do is they would go into stores and they would cause distractions. And what happened at the time is women were given a lot of leeway when they went into a store. There was a lot of social propriety there that a man wouldn't just go up to her and get into her personal space and think like, this woman's going to rob me. They were always assuming that women were too dainty and delicate for that. And so this was the first gang where they started realize like, oh, if we go into a store and we look like we own the joint, people are going to assume that we're wealthy and they'll leave us alone. This is a thing that happens to this day. Fake
it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it. So Mary's doing that for a while, and then Mary goes to prison. And then we get Diamond Annie. And Diamond Annie was born Alice Elizabeth Black in 1896. She took over the gang when she was 20 years old. And Alice grew up being basically her dad was a thief, her sister was a thief, her brother was a thief. Everybody was getting into trouble in her family. Everybody assumed
whole family of hoisters.
Her father got mad at the mayor of London's son and punched him through a window.
Damn.
These are people that are like, they don't fuck around. Like, they don't like you, they're going to let you down.
All right.
So Diamond Annie, that's what her name became eventually, because like I said, she was taller than average, but she wore jewelry on her hands. She started perfecting the whole look like you're fucking hot shit and people will pay attention to you. I'm saying the cruder version, but
yes,
they would. Elephants was part of that, was because that was the area, the Elephant and Castle, but also the bustles that women wore and the clothes that they wore. There were so many layers of clothing, and they would sew into their pockets way to like steal things in there. They would put things into their bustle. They would wear fake arms and then have a fake arm coming out, like, you know,
my God.
and then underneath use their real hand to steal things. These women were fucking clever. They would show up at a store And there would be a bunch of them coming out of a black cab, and then another bunch coming out of a black cab, and then another bunch, and then the last one would be out of a limousine. And they would go into a store. Under an hour, they could take as much as they wanted. Women could go to changing rooms and nobody would watch them. They would take things and then make decoys. They would put in like a zirconian ring and then take all the diamonds. Annie was so good at it that one time she got caught by this cop and she just took a whole row of rings that as he was trying to confiscate, like grab her and put handcuffs on her, like take her in, she had managed to put the rings in his pockets. She was quick.
That's pretty good.
She was fucking quick. She was really tough. And she also had what she called the Hoister's Code. So there was a few things. You had to have everybody's fucking back. If somebody went to jail, you had to lie for them and you had to take care of their families. You had to dress up and look perfectly. You could never, ever keep any of the merchandise. Everything had to be sent out and gone through a fence. You had to fence everything out. So she insisted you had to wear the best clothes. You had to look your best all the time, but you could not use the stuff that they stole. Everything had to be taken away because they didn't want the police to come back to them for anything. They had deals with like railroads around England so they could ship stuff out. She was one of the first women to have a driver's license. She could drive really well. So she had getaway cars that she could get away in. She also had very strict codes. If they were going to rob, like one day, the night before, you couldn't drink and you had to go to bed early. And she also ran their private lives. If she didn't like your boyfriend, he was out. She didn't like how you did things, you were out. And she ran with an iron fist, like I said. So one time, there's something that's called, and this is my favorite article, this is from the Daily Mail. It's called Hoodlums and Bloomers.
Hoodlums of what?
Hoodlums and Bloomers. Diamond Annie got really mad at one of her women because she married a guy that she didn't approve of. The woman not only married the guy, but she was pregnant. So she basically had to get married. And Diamond Annie was really pissed about it. So they go to a club. They go to a saloon in South London and they start fighting. The girl grabs her husband and they go back home. And Annie like gets drunker and drunker and she's getting madder and madder. Like, that bitch married that guy. I told her she couldn't do that. So Annie and everybody got together drunkenly, went to the house, bust down the door, and started beating the shit out of the husband.
Damn.
So the cops came, and then that's the one time she went to jail because they caught her, they had her at her rights. But she was a fucking badass. She took no shit from anybody. When we go into also like how clever they were, another thing they would do is they would buy clothes that were like, they always were at the tailors and they would buy things 2 or 3 sizes too big, like a John Fetterman sized sweatshirt. Like they would just, they would get a fur coat really big and then go to a furrier and try on new coats and then just put their old coat on top of the new coat and walk out. And it would be like half an hour before they knew what was going on. Like these women were just...
Yeah.
Also what they did, because they branched out. You got to diversify. You always got to be making money.
Yes.
Always be pitching. Always be making money. Another thing that they were really good at is they would also... She had different syndicates, little different factions. She had a group of women that would become maids for a family. And they'd write up their reference letters and say, oh, yeah, this is Bridget from Dublin. She's wonderful. She can cook and she can do this and that. And they'd work at the house for like a couple of months and figure out how things went, get in with the family, and then they just rob them blind.
Damn. So sly.
It's unbelievable. Another way that they made money was that they would seduce men. This is also older than time.
I mean, this is how I make my money.
Just how my mom met my dad. Sorry, I'm getting a little tear in my eye. I recall this.
That's old fashioned.
They'd seduce men and they would take pictures of them in compromising positions and then basically say, pay us this money or whatever. Oh, also, if anybody crossed Annie and it was a guy or a gal, whoever it was, if somebody in their family was like threatening to call the cops, they'd kidnap the person beat the shit out of them and hold them for ransom.
Whoa.
Eventually, Annie gets caught, and it's that 1925 where, she broke into somebody's home and tried to stab someone to death. So that there are rules.
You do.
Right.
Like you do.
So she goes to jail, and that's when they're taken over by a woman who was known as the Bobbed Bandit. And I'll put pictures of her in our Facebook group. Lillian Rose Kendall was beautiful. Very young. Annie's in jail. Lillian shows up, and she's the one who even makes them even more glamorous than they were before. It's the jazz age. They can't wear the bustles and all that shit anymore. They have very sleek clothes, right? So she's the one that really turns up the notch with the whole car thing. She would just drive really fast in her getaways. She was like a sporty kind of person. But she also was the kind of person that was into the smash and grab, and she would actually drive her car through the front window of a store. They would jump out, grab as much as they can.
Making an entrance. Yes.
That's making an entrance. These are some of the tricks of their trade. There was the crush. The crush is when somebody would come in and they would swarm around a store, like a counter, and then everybody would be asking to be helped at the same time. So as they're doing that, they're stealing them blind.
Okay.
There was the ringer, and I forget what the ringer was, but the ringer was a whole other thing. Oh, the ringer was when they would just they come in and they bring false diamonds and false pearls and stuff like that and switch them out again. And then there was the decoy. Everybody knew that Diamond Annie was a thief, so she would walk into a store and just kind of walk around like, I'm Annie. That's me. Yeah. What are you going to do?
I'm just here to steal some shit.
I'm just stealing some shit. And they would be so focused on her that the women around her would just rip them off blind. I mean, she really had it down perfectly.
I can't help but wonder if Diamond Annie is the reason why we didn't have dresses with pockets for so long. I think this is their fault.
I think that's a really good point. When you see these things, they had...
You're a creep, Diamond Annie. We need pockets.
Well, part of the reason they went by the FortyElephants was that they would be so weighed down with stuff that if that would fill their bustles that they resembled elephants. Yeah. They were just... And sometimes they'd find them with 40 items on them.
Also, they never forget. They never forget.
Except when they do forget. And there's one of them that... One of them that went into a store by herself. When you never go by yourself, you always have somebody as a lookout. But she was just feeling that itch one day, and she went into a jewelry store and she got picked up. So there it happens occasionally. Annie went to jail, and then when she got out of jail, she, there were younger kids taking over now. She was kind of older, so she became a mentor to younger thieves. Aw,
that's adorable.
And she ran a brothel, and she kind of did her own thing, and then she passed away in 1956. The thieving...
56?
56. Well, yeah, so she was 1896, and then it was 1956 when she died.
Okay.
So, for someone who didn't take care of themselves very well, and a pretty high-risk lifestyle, that's not so bad, for mid-century, mid-20th century. The thieving went on until... technically the 50s, maybe into the 60s. In the 50s, there was this thing called Teddy Girls, and they predate mods. So in America, we had Bobby Soxers and that whole teen movement. Teddy Girls were the pink ladies, in Greece.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But they were also they would stab you in a second if they could.
Oh, well, that's not as adorable as the pink ladies.
Right.
They don't do a musical number.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
There are worse things I can do.
But this is pretty bad.
There aren't as many. I mean, there's always going to be gangs of thieves that are shoplifters. For this particular time, and this was some of their names, there was Alice Annie Diamond, there was Maggie Babyface Hill, Crazy Mary Carr, Gert Scully, Dorothy Doolittle Hill, and there was also just a pack called the Girls. They would use pistols, they would use hat pins, they would take coat rack, like the hangers, and then
Yeah.
shiv them. The Mauser 696 carbine was a big like favorite gun of theirs.
Oh my god,
They
that sounds
had-
huge.
They had all kinds of shit on them all the time. They would hide things in their hats. They used everything they could. They were clever, and they were brilliant. They were thieves. They weren't,
Yeah.
good people, of course, but
Right.
in
I don't
their
want to
own-
hang out with them. By the
they
no.
fucking terrify me. But it's a time when women could make their own money and make their own lives, and this is that was their way of doing it. That's their way
Yeah.
of being independent, because you never know what's going to happen to you.
Yeah.
That's the story today. Diamond Annie and the 40 Thieves. It's just a little bit of creepy history in London that I just fucking love.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I would watch the shit out of that movie.
They had one where one of the two women stole. It was like 300 pounds worth of furs, and they were there in just half an hour. They just would go in.
That's hard work.
It's very hard work.
Do you want to take a break and then we could hear about our non-creep?
Yes, please.
Okay. All
Okay.
right, you ready?
Yep.
Okay. Do you know who Alice Waters is?
Yeah.
She, if y'all don't know, is a chef, a restaurateur, and an author. Her name is Alice Louise Waters. Sorry. And she opened a restaurant here in the Bay Area in Berkeley called Chez Panisse. And she's kind of famous for creating the whole farm to table movement and pioneering what is known as quote unquote California cuisine. I chose her, by the way, because her name is Alice. That's the only connection. If you're wondering, if you're like, wait, was Alice Waters in a girl gang? No, I just went, her name was Alice. This is the best I could do, y'all. But she's a good person. She's a good one to pick. So she's authored several cookbooks. She won a James Beard Award. She is the first woman to win Best Chef from the James Beard Award. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
She was born in New Jersey, April 28th, 1944. She went to Rutgers University. She graduated with a oh no, I'm sorry. She went to Berkeley. I am sorry. I was reading where her dad went. I apologize. She went to UC Berkeley and she got a degree in French cultural studies. And then she went to France to study abroad. And that's when she was in France. They do food very differently than we do here in America. Maybe a lot of our listeners already know that because they live over there. But she shopped for local produce and, prepared really fresh, simple food. And she took that idea and she brought it to Berkeley and opened up Chez Panisse in 1971. And so the restaurant is still super famous. I've eaten there one time back when I still ate meat. I went there and I forget what I had. I think it was some sort of chicken dish and it was delicious. And it's a sweet little restaurant and you feel very special when you're there. So she started doing this and then she became very into organic ingredients. So the restaurant itself is dedicated to using organic ingredients. And then she became this kind of crusader for organic food. And she thinks they're better for the environment, they're better for your health. And so she's this very big advocate for organic food. And she has taken that to the next step. So now she's a big public policy advocate for healthy organic food. She pushes for healthy lunch programs in schools. She met with the Obamas and got them to plant their organic garden in the White House.
Did Melania tear that down?
Yes, she did. And
Bitch.
fucking Fox News lost their shit when they planted an organic garden. It's who the fuck cares? But they were oh, they planted a garden. Oh, somebody's too good to eat vegetables from a can. Fuck off, Fox News. Anyway, on top of that, she created something called the Chez Panisse Foundation in 1996. And it's all about public education and teaching kids to about food, like in a good way, teaching them how to cook, how to eat healthy, things like that. And so she works with the Berkeley Unified School District here. She developed like a special like program that incorporates growing, cooking, and sharing food at the table. It's at the school. Like they make healthy lunches there. That's what they serve there.
Do they have tater tots?
Free. They might have tater tots, and they're probably fucking delicious.
Yeah.
Like, give me some of your tots. It's like a free lunch program, and it's healthy. Like, which not all schools have, by the way. Like, there's a fucking bullshit thing. Remember when they were trying to convince people that ketchup was a vegetable?
Yeah.
Like, that's how shitty, like, a lot of school lunch programs are. So she's a huge, advocate for this. And so on top of that, she's created something called the Edible Schoolyard at a school. I know. It sounds like you're going to get high, but that's not what it is. And that's at the Martin Luther King School in Berkeley. And that's another one where they've set up an organic garden at the school, and they're teaching kids about gardening and cooking the food that comes from the garden. So they like grow it, they harvest it, they prepare the foods, and it's just teaching them about where your food comes from, and how to cook it properly. And by the way, like, I think this is rad because no joke, there's like a whole like generation of kids that don't know how to cook. They literally only know how to make like mac and cheese from a box. And that, by the way, I don't want to shit on people. Like, you do, you're doing the best you can. But like, cooking isn't something that like everybody gets to learn.
No.
Not everyone. Luxury.
It is.
It's, so I think it's honestly, like, my mom cooked all the time, but I still didn't learn to cook until I was in my fucking 30s.
Right.
I was in my 30s when I was like, hey, maybe I don't know, make something that's not from a box. Like, thank you, Trader Joe's. So she, has the Chez Panisse Foundation. She has the Edible Schoolyard, which really they should rename.
That's really...
She's turned it into the School Lunch Initiative, and it's like this broader goal of like bringing a healthy lunch program to other schools. And now it's expanded. So it's like there's one in New Orleans, there's one in New York City, there's one in Los Angeles, there's one here in San Francisco, and there's one in Greensboro, North Carolina. She's also working to get like free school lunches nationwide, which is another sadly stupid thing that we're doing here in this country, where like we're charging kids for lunches, and then some schools actually like shaming these kids when their bills aren't paid in time. It's like
it's a thing really... in America, like where celebrities will pay for the school lunches, like they'll pick up the bill because there's kids. Disgusting. I know, and it's, I mean,
so she's pushing for like to extend free meal programs all over the country. She is pitching things like the Edible Schoolyard. Sorry, I'm going to snicker every time.
That's not a good name.
And the School Lunch Initiative. She's trying to, she supported the 2010 Child Nutrition Reauthorization Act, which was, again, trying to combat things like trying to pass off ketchup as a vegetable. She's pushed for a similar program in Rome. And I just think this is awesome. Like,
yeah.
This is as someone who's the parent of a kid in school, which, by the way, my kid won't eat any school lunch because he wants to eat the same one thing every day for his school lunch.
What's that?
But Calvin eats what he calls brown chicken. It's chicken nuggets, but it's a certain brand. It's like Earth's Best chicken nuggets. So if I buy like any other kind of chicken nugget, he's like, gross. Like, it's
is it
only
real chicken? Or is he...
Yes, it is.
Wow.
It's real chicken. But he won't eat, like, if I bought like dino nuggets or whatever, he'd be like, fuck off. Like, he would never eat that. And then he gets either goldfish crackers or Cheez-Its with it. And if I put something else other than those things in there, or a generic brand of those things, again, they will not be eaten.
Wow.
Like, Calvin is very specific about those things. Like, So anyway, but I do care about school lunches. I think they should be free, and I think they should be healthy. And that's why I picked Alice Waters.
That's why which is a great choice. And she was on the vanguard of things when she created her. I've never been to Chez Panisse. I know people who have, and they just rave about it.
Yeah.
But
it's lovely.
And I always thought about that. Like, yeah, people need to eat every day. And there's kids like that. That's the meal they get every day. That's the one we have food insecurity in America. And that just drives me crazy when you hear ketchup
so sad.
is a vegetable. And
yeah. And during the pandemic, when school was not in session,
a
lot of schools were still offering free lunches. They were like, come and get them, basically, like, because for a lot of kids, this was the only time they were eating. And then some of these schools have continued to serve lunch well into the summer because they don't want the kids to go hungry. It's really fucking sad.
We're one of the wealthiest countries in the world.
Yes.
And we have that issue. Yeah,
exactly. It's really upsetting. And so I like that someone is thinking about it and not just feeding them, but also like making it something healthy. So we're not just, shoving garbage off onto our kids.
When I was growing up, we had, it was tater tots were the thing. Like that was that was my fucking jam. Like super hot tater tots, like really salty, like, and so greasy, like the paper would just be dripping in it. Oh my God. I'm hungry
Everyone
now. I want tater tots now.
What I remember was pizza day. Like everyone lost their minds for pizza day in elementary school and actually middle school and high school.
And in life. Do you remember?
Yeah, no shit, actually.
My friend's son had a summer job where he had to go to the office in the city, and his parents said, okay, we'll pay for the subway. You have to pay your own lunch. And so the first day he comes home and he's like, I paid $20 for like a sandwich and a soda, because everything's so freaking expensive. Yeah. That's when he learned about bagels and pizza. Like when people had meetings and then they were done with the meetings, they would have like free food in the cafeteria or in the, you know what I'm talking about? The conference room food. And he would like talk about it for days. Yeah.
I'm like a vulture.
Me too.
When I'm in the office. Oh, when there's a meeting and there's food in there, like I'll be lingering around.
Oh yeah,
outside your meeting, waiting for you to come out.
The fruit bowl, all that shit.
Yeah, and there's at my job back when we were all in the office, like there was a Slack channel dedicated to free food where people were like, there's fucking burritos on the third floor. People run down to the third floor. And like my boss would text me, grab me one of those burritos. Like, we don't mess around. No, that's a thing.
We all need to eat, man.
We need to eat.
Yeah. Well, that is our show today. And if you like the sound of our voices, and why the hell wouldn't you at this point, let's talk about our other show, Dorking Out. We have a special guest coming on this week. She is an author, and we'll introduce her in our next episode. But what's the movie we're going to be doing?
We're going to talk about Hereditary, which is
perfect for the holidays.
Perfect. A little holiday family drama. Hereditary. I love this movie. I'm a big fan. We've talked about this, how much I love this movie. So I'm really excited to talk about it. But we also do have some holiday ones coming soon too. We're gonna do Home Alone
with Adam Risky.
Yes. This one isn't holiday, but we are going to do Ruthless People because we have promised.
There's people that have asked us as a Christmas present, can you please cover Ruthless People on Dorking Out?
So we will.
We will be doing that. So
we will do that as well.
Cool your jets, y'all. We will be doing that.
It's gonna happen.
If you have any suggestions for people who are creeps or non-creeps that we should cover, please use all those social media places I mentioned before. We love it when you use the Annie Potts GIF. We got one from Ghostbusters. And Sonia, where can they find you?
Everywhere. No, you could go to thesoniashow.com, The Sonia Show on Twitter, Instagram. I'm on Hive Social now. If that's where you want to be, you could go to Mastodon or whatever the fuck that's called. And I'm just under Sonia there because I tried to see if I could just get Sonia, and I could. So you could do that, or you could go to the TikTok. I am also there. Where can people find you, Margot?
You can find me at Brooklyn Fit Chick for Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Mastodon. I haven't checked it out in a few weeks. I also joined Hive Social, and under Hive Social and TikTok, I'm under my name, Margot Donahue, and my site is brooklynfitchick.com. Thank you all so much for joining us. Be good. Don't steal, by the way. I don't want to give the impression that it's good to steal. It's not good to steal. You'll get in trouble.
No, that's why they're the creeps.
Exactly.
No stealing.
Enjoy yourselves. Thank you, London. But goodbye, loves. Don't be creeps, yo.
Don't be creeps.
Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.